The great throne room of the Valanthi Empire was the most beautiful place in the entire galaxy. Giant pillars of living crystal stretched up toward a ceiling so high that clouds actually formed inside the room. Light from 3 different suns came through massive windows, painting everything in shades of gold, purple, and soft blue. Thousands of the most powerful beings in the known universe stood in perfect rows, dressed in their finest clothes and armor. Today was the most important day in recent memory. Princess Elindra Velshan, the only daughter of Emperor Velshan and heir to 12 star systems, had come of age. According to ancient tradition, she must now choose her future husband. The man she picked would one day rule beside her over the greatest empire the galaxy had ever known. Everyone had come to witness this historic moment. The Krix delegation stood to the left, their insect-like bodies covered in ceremonial armor that clicked softly whenever they moved. Prince Kethrix, their candidate, was considered the finest warrior of his generation. His 4 arms were folded confidently across his chest, and his compound eyes studied everything in the room with cold calculation. The Krix controlled the largest military fleet outside the Valanthi Empire. A marriage alliance with them would create an unstoppable force. To the right stood the representatives of the Prism Concordat. These beings were made of living crystal, and they sparkled like diamonds under the throne room lights. Lord Crystallos, their offering for the princess's hand, was said to be over 3,000 years old and possessed knowledge of technologies lost to time. His body chimed softly like wind bells, creating a strange and beautiful music. Behind them waited the Draken's sovereignty. These were massive creatures, standing over 3 meters tall, with scales harder than steel and muscles that could bend metal. Warlord Thrax had personally killed 1,000 enemies in battle. His people believed strength was everything, and he had proven his strength many times over. There were others, too. Dozens of princes and lords from powerful species across the galaxy had traveled for months to be here. Each one represented military might, economic power, or ancient bloodlines. Any of them would be considered a perfect match for the princess. Emperor Velshan sat upon the crystal throne, watching the proceedings with ancient, knowing eyes. The Valanthi were tall and graceful beings with skin that shifted colors with their emotions. The Emperor's skin was calm blue today, but those who knew him could see the tension in his shoulders. He loved his daughter more than his empire, but duty was duty. "Let the candidates present themselves," announced the Grand Chamberlain, his voice echoing through the vast hall. One by one, the suitors stepped forward. Each one made grand speeches about their power, their wealth, their lineage. Prince Kethrix promised 10,000 warships as a wedding gift. Lord Crystallos offered technologies that could extend Valanthi lifespans by centuries. Warlord Thrax simply flexed his muscles and declared that no enemy would ever threaten the Empire while he lived. The presentations took hours. Through it all, Princess Elindra sat beside her father in a smaller throne, her face showing polite interest, but nothing more. She was young by Valanthi standards, barely 200 years old, but there was something in her eyes that made wise beings uneasy. She was thinking things that no one could guess. Finally, all the candidates had spoken. The Grand Chamberlain turned to the princess and bowed deeply. "Your Highness, the candidates have presented themselves. According to the ancient traditions of our people, the choice is yours. Who will you honor with your hand in marriage?" The entire room held its breath. This was the moment everyone had waited for. Bets had been placed across the galaxy. Political analysts had written thousands of reports predicting her choice. Most believed she would choose the Krix prince for his military value. Some thought she might surprise everyone with the Draken warlord to show strength. No one predicted what actually happened. Princess Elindra rose from her throne. Her skin flickered through several colors before settling on a determined silver that no one had ever seen on her before. She walked forward until she stood at the top of the grand stairs, looking down at all the assembled powers of the galaxy. When she spoke, her voice was calm and clear. I thank all the candidates for their generous offers. The Crick's military strength is impressive. The Prism Concordate's wisdom is valuable. The Draken sovereignty's power is undeniable. The candidates began to preen, each hoping they were about to be chosen. However, Elindra continued, I must decline all of these offers. Shocked murmurs rippled through the crowd. The Emperor's skin flashed orange with surprise before he controlled himself. The Grand Chamberlain looked like he might faint. I have made my decision, the princess announced. My future husband will be a human. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then chaos erupted. A human? Prince Kethrix's mandibles clicked with fury. Those primitive creatures? They have barely left their own star system. They live for less than a century. This is an insult to the Crick's collective. Lord Crystallos chimed discordantly, his crystal body flashing angry red. Humans are children in the galactic community. They have no significant technology, no military power, no political standing. Surely the princess is joking. Warlord Thrax laughed loudly, a booming sound that shook the nearby windows. Humans. I have swatted insects more threatening than humans. The princess has clearly lost her mind. Perhaps the stress of choosing has broken her. The throne room dissolved into arguments and shouting. Species that had been enemies for centuries now agreed on one thing. The princess had gone insane. Humans were nobody. Humans were nothing. Humans were so far beneath the galactic powers that most species barely remembered they existed. But through all the chaos, Princess Elindra simply smiled. She had expected this reaction. She had prepared for it for decades. While others saw humans as weak and unimportant, she had studied them in secret. She had read their history, watched their entertainment, listened to their music, and learned their languages. She had seen something that everyone else missed. Humans were not weak. They were simply young. And in their short history, they had done things that should have been impossible. They had survived ice ages, plagues, and wars. They had gone from caves to stars in the blink of a cosmic eye. They created art that made her weep and stories that made her dream. Most importantly, they never gave up. Ever. The princess looked at her father, who was watching her with a mixture of confusion and curiosity. Their eyes met, and something passed between them. The Emperor slowly nodded. "Silence!" the Emperor commanded, rising from his throne. The room immediately went quiet. No one disobeyed the Emperor. "My daughter has made an unusual request," he said carefully. "However, she is within her rights according to our traditions. She may choose any candidate she wishes." "But she has chosen no one," protested Prince Kethrix. "There is no human candidate present." The Emperor raised his hand for silence again. "Then she will be given time to find one. I grant my daughter 1 galactic year to locate a human worthy of the throne. If she fails to find a suitable candidate, she must accept a traditional match." Elindra bowed to her father gratefully. "Thank you, Father. 1 year is all I need." As the assembly broke apart in confusion and anger, the princess remained calm. She already knew where she would begin her search. 5 years ago, she had witnessed a battle report that had captured her attention. A young human officer had held a single corridor against overwhelming odds, protecting thousands of innocent people. His name was Marcus Chen. And he had no idea that his life was about to change forever. Marcus Chen woke up the same way he did every morning. The alarm on his small bedside table beeped loudly at exactly 5 o'clock. He reached over and turned it off, then lay still for a moment, staring at the metal ceiling of his tiny room. Another day on Titan's Reach. He got up slowly and looked out his small window. Outside, the harsh orange sun was just beginning to rise over the Rocky Mountains. Titan's Reach was not a beautiful world. It was covered in dust, rocks, and deep mining tunnels. The air outside was barely breathable without a mask. But for 40,000 humans, it was home. Marcus was 34 years old. He had short black hair that was starting to show a few gray strands. His face carried the marks of hard years, including a long scar that ran from his left eyebrow down to his cheek. His body was strong from years of military training and physical work, but his eyes carried a deep tiredness that never seemed to go away. He was the security chief of Titan's Reach. It was not a glamorous job. Mostly he broke up fights between miners, checked the perimeter fences, and made sure the colony's few weapons were in working order. It was quiet work, boring work. That was exactly why he had chosen it. After getting dressed in his simple gray uniform, Marcus walked through the colony's main street. It was really just a wide tunnel carved into the rock, lined with small homes and shops. People were already waking up. Children ran past him on their way to the colony's small school. Miners headed toward the deep shafts, their helmets tucked under their arms. A few people waved at Marcus, and he nodded back. He stopped at old Maria's food stand and bought a simple breakfast of protein bread and hot coffee. Maria was 70 years old, one of the original settlers who had come to Titan's Reach 30 years ago. "You look tired, Marcus," she said, handing him his food. "I always look tired," he replied with a small smile. "Bad dreams again?" Marcus didn't answer. He just paid for his food and walked away. Maria watched him go with sad eyes. Everyone in the colony knew about Marcus Chen's past. Everyone knew why he had come to this forgotten corner of the galaxy. They just never talked about it. Marcus spent his morning doing the usual rounds. He checked the eastern fence where some local animals had been trying to dig under the barrier. He visited the water treatment plant to make sure the night shift had not had any problems. He stopped by the medical center to see if anyone had been injured in the mines overnight. It was during his lunch break that everything changed. Marcus was sitting alone in his small office, eating another protein bar, when his communication device suddenly lit up with emergency signals. Every alarm in the colony started screaming at once. Red lights flashed everywhere. He jumped to his feet and ran to the main control room. The colony's small team of technicians was already there, staring at their screens with pale faces. "What is it?" Marcus demanded. Young Tommy, the colony's best sensor operator, pointed at the main screen with a shaking hand. "Sir, you need to see this." Marcus looked at the screen and felt his heart stop. A ship was descending from orbit, but not just any ship. This was a Valanthy Imperial cruiser, one of the most advanced vessels in the entire galaxy. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time, all flowing curves and glowing energy fields. It was also absolutely massive, at least 5 kilometers long. "Why is a Valanthy ship here?" someone whispered. No one had an answer. Marcus watched the ship descend through the atmosphere. It moved slowly, gracefully, like it had all the time in the universe. Finally, it stopped above the colony's main landing pad, hovering silently. "They're requesting permission to land," Tommy reported, his voice cracking. Marcus took a deep breath. "Grant it." 20 minutes later, Marcus stood at the landing pad with a small group of colony leaders. They watched as a smaller shuttle detached from the massive ship and floated down to the ground. When it landed, a ramp extended from its side. Marcus expected soldiers. He expected diplomats in fancy robes. He expected anything except what actually appeared. A young woman walked down the ramp. She was tall and graceful, with skin that shimmered like starlight. Her hair was silver and flowed behind her like water. She wore simple traveling clothes, not royal robes. Behind her came only 4 guards, not the army Marcus had expected. The woman walked straight toward Marcus and stopped in front of him. Her eyes, which were the color of deep space, studied his face with intense curiosity. "Commander Marcus Chen," she said. Her voice was musical, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "I have traveled very far to meet you." Marcus kept his face neutral, even though his mind was racing. "I'm just a security chief now, not a commander, and you have me at a disadvantage. You know my name, but I don't know yours." The woman smiled slightly. "My name is Elindra. I am here to learn about your colony and your people. I was hoping you might show me around." She did not mention that she was a princess. She did not mention her announcement to the galaxy. She simply waited, watching him with those strange, beautiful eyes. Marcus did not trust her. He had seen what the great powers of the galaxy did to small human colonies. They took what they wanted and left ruins behind. He had lost too much to ever trust easily again, but he also could not refuse a Volanthi visitor. That would cause political problems his colony could not afford. "Fine," he said shortly. "I'll give you a tour, but I warn you, there's not much to see here. We're just miners trying to survive." "That," Elindra said softly, "is exactly what I came to see." For the next several hours, Marcus showed the princess his world. He took her through the mining tunnels, where men and women worked hard to pull valuable minerals from the rock. He showed her the hydroponic farms, where colonists grew food in artificial light. He introduced her to the school, where 30 children learned reading, math, and Earth history. Through it all, Elindra asked questions. Hundreds of questions. Why did humans shake hands when meeting? What were birthdays, and why did humans celebrate them? Why did the miners sing old songs while they worked? What was the purpose of the small animals that some families kept in their homes? Marcus answered as best he could. He noticed that she never looked down on anything. She never seemed bored or disgusted by their simple lives. Instead, she seemed genuinely fascinated by everything. Late in the afternoon, an emergency call came through Marcus's communicator. There had been a cave-in at Mine Shaft 7. 3 workers were trapped. Marcus ran toward the mine without thinking. When he arrived, he found chaos. Rocks had collapsed, blocking the tunnel where the workers were stuck. People were shouting, trying to organize a rescue. Marcus took command immediately. He organized teams, assigned tasks, and then grabbed a digging tool himself. For 3 hours, he worked alongside miners, security officers, and volunteers. His hands bled. His muscles screamed, but he did not stop. Elindra watched everything. She saw how Marcus refused to give up, even when others said it was hopeless. She saw how he encouraged frightened workers and made calm decisions under pressure. She saw him carry the first rescued miner out on his own shoulders, tears of relief streaming down his dusty face. When all 3 workers were finally safe, the colony erupted in celebration. People hugged each other. Someone brought out hidden bottles of homemade alcohol. Music started playing from somewhere. Marcus sat alone on a rock, exhausted. Elindra walked over and sat beside him. "You are not what I expected," she said quietly. "What did you expect?" "I don't know," she admitted, "but I think I found exactly what I was looking for." Before Marcus could ask what she meant, alarms started screaming again, but this time the warning was not about a cave-in. It was about warships, many warships, entering the system. The Krix prince had come for revenge. The control room was filled with panic. Technicians ran back and forth, checking screens and shouting information. The main display showed a terrifying sight. 12 Krix warships had entered the system. Each one was bristling with weapons. Each one was heading straight for Titan's reach. Marcus pushed through the crowd and reached the main console. His face was calm, but his heart was beating fast. "How long until they reach us?" he asked. Tommy's fingers flew across his keyboard. At current speed. 6 hours, sir. 6 hours. 6 hours until the most powerful military fleet in the galaxy arrived at their doorstep. Marcus looked around the room at the frightened faces. These were miners, farmers, teachers. They were not soldiers. They had no warships, no planetary shields, no advanced weapons. They had nothing. A communication signal flashed on the screen. Someone was trying to contact them. Marcus nodded, and Tommy opened the channel. The face of Prince Kethrix appeared on the display. His insect-like features showed cruel amusement. His mandibles clicked slowly as he spoke. "Humans of Titan's Reach," he said, his voice dripping with contempt. "I know the Valanthi princess is with you. You have 6 hours to surrender her to me and evacuate your colony. If you refuse, I will burn your world to ashes. Every man, woman, and child will die. This is not a negotiation. This is your only warning." The transmission ended. Silence filled the room. People looked at each other with desperate eyes. Some were already crying. A few turned to look at Princess Elindra, who stood quietly in the corner. "We should give her to them," someone whispered. "It's the only way to save ourselves." "She brought this upon us," another voice agreed. "Why should we die for some alien princess?" Marcus raised his hand for silence. The room went quiet. Everyone looked at their security chief, hoping he had some answer, some solution to this impossible situation. Marcus turned to Elindra. "If we surrender you, will they really leave us alone?" Elindra shook her head slowly. "No. Prince Kethrix is not known for mercy. He will take me, and then he will destroy your colony anyway. He cannot allow witnesses to his actions. Your people will die either way." Marcus nodded. He had expected that answer. "Then we fight," he said simply. The room erupted in protests. "Fight? With what? We have no weapons. They have 12 warships. We're just miners." Marcus waited for the shouting to stop. When it did, he spoke again. "I know we cannot win a normal battle. I know they have more ships, more soldiers, more weapons. But this is our home. These are our families. And I will not hand over an innocent woman to a monster who will kill us anyway." He paused, looking at the faces around him. "I am not ordering anyone to fight. This is a choice each person must make for themselves. If you want to try to run, I won't stop you. But I am staying. I am fighting. And I am going to make them pay for every inch of our world." The room was silent. Then old Maria, the food vendor, stepped forward. "I'm staying," she said firmly. "I've lived here for 30 years. I'm not running now." One by one, others stepped forward. Tommy, the technician, Dr. Patel from the medical center, the school teacher, Mrs. Kim, the miners who had just been rescued from the cave-in, parents holding their children's hands, old people and young people, strong people and scared people. Every single colonist chose to stay. Marcus felt something warm spread through his chest. Pride, love, hope. These were his people. These were humans. "All right," he said, his voice steady. "Let's get to work." For the next 5 hours, Titan's Reach transformed into a fortress. Marcus had learned many things during his years in the military. He had studied famous battles from human history. He knew that the weak could defeat the strong if they were smart enough. The asteroid belt around the planet became a minefield. Mining explosives were attached to hundreds of rocks, ready to detonate when ships passed nearby. The colonists knew this asteroid belt better than anyone. They knew every hiding spot, every dangerous area, every shortcut. On the ground, the colonists prepared traps and ambush points. The mining tunnels became defensive positions. Heavy equipment was turned into barriers. The atmospheric processors were rigged to release toxic chemicals if enemy soldiers came too close. Every person had a job. Children carried ammunition and supplies. Elderly colonists monitored communication systems. Teachers became medics. Farmers became scouts. Miners became soldiers. Elindra watched all of this with growing amazement. She had studied humans for decades, but reading about them was different from seeing them in action. These people should have been paralyzed with fear. Instead, they were organized, determined, and even making jokes as they worked. "Why are they laughing?" she asked Marcus. "Don't they understand they might die?" Marcus smiled tiredly. "They understand perfectly. That's why they're laughing. Humans have always used humor to face death. It's how we stay brave." Elindra shook her head in wonder. "Your species is very strange." "Yes," Marcus agreed. "We are." When the 6th hour arrived, the Crix fleet appeared in the sky like angry metal stars. Prince Kethrix sent another message demanding surrender. He received no response. Furious, the prince ordered his ships forward. The first Crix destroyer entered the asteroid belt confidently. It never saw the mines until they exploded. The massive ship shuddered as 3 explosions tore through its hull. It did not sink immediately, but it was badly damaged, limping away from the battle. The prince screamed orders at his fleet. More ships pushed forward, but now they were cautious. Another mine damaged a second destroyer. A third ship lost its engines when it flew through a cloud of debris the colonists had deliberately created. Prince Kethrix was enraged. He had expected easy victory. Instead, he was losing ships to primitive human tricks. He ordered ground forces to land immediately. Thousands of Crix soldiers descended toward Titan's Reach in transport ships. They were professional warriors, trained from birth for combat. Each one carried advanced weapons and wore powerful armor. They expected to crush the humans in minutes. They were wrong. The first wave landed in what looked like an empty valley. Within seconds, hidden explosives turned it into a death trap. The second wave landed near the mining tunnels, only to face colonists who knew every rock and shadow. The humans fought with mining tools, homemade bombs, and fierce desperation. Marcus was everywhere. He commanded defenses, rescued wounded fighters, and led counterattacks. Beside him, to everyone's surprise, Princess Elindra fought as well. She revealed combat training that she had hidden her whole life. Together, they pushed back assault after assault. Hours passed. The Crix kept coming. The colonists kept fighting. Bodies fell on both sides. The ground became stained with blood, but the humans refused to break. Prince Kethrix watched the battle feeds from his command ship with growing disbelief. He saw human children helping reload weapons. He saw wounded fighters refusing to retreat. He saw elderly people standing on barricades, shouting defiance at his warriors. He saw something he never expected from such a weak species. He saw courage. "Enough!" the prince snarled. "Prepare the orbital bombardment. I will burn them all from space." But before he could give the final order, Marcus Chen's voice came through the communication system. "Prince Kethrix, I am coming for you." On the ground, Marcus and 20 volunteers boarded a modified mining shuttle. It was a desperate plan. They would fly through the battle, board the Crix command ship, and capture or kill the prince. It was almost certainly a suicide mission. Elindra grabbed Marcus's arm before he boarded. "I'm coming with you." "No, you're the reason this started. You need to stay safe." "I am not a treasure to be protected," she said firmly. "I am a warrior, and I choose to fight beside you." Marcus looked into her eyes and saw no fear, only determination. "All right," he said. "Let's go end this." The shuttle launched into the chaos of battle, dodging weapons fire and debris. Against all odds, it reached the Crix command ship and crashed into the landing bay. Marcus, Elindra, and the surviving volunteers fought their way through the ship, corridor by corridor, room by room, leaving fallen friends behind but never stopping. Finally, they reached the command bridge. Prince Kethrix waited inside with his elite guards. "Impressive," the prince admitted, his mandibles clicking. "For humans. But this is where your story ends." Marcus raised his weapon. "We'll see about that." The command bridge of the Krix warship was huge and dark. Strange lights blinked on alien consoles. The air smelled metallic and cold. Prince Kethrix stood in the center, surrounded by 12 of his elite guards. Each guard was a killing machine, trained since birth for combat. Marcus stood at the entrance with Elindra and only 8 surviving volunteers. They were exhausted, wounded, and outgunned. But none of them showed fear. "You are brave," Prince Kethrix admitted, his compound eyes studying Marcus. "Foolish, but brave. I will make your death quick as a reward for your courage." Marcus did not respond with words. He simply raised his weapon and fired. The battle that followed was brutal and fast. The Krix guards charged forward with incredible speed. The humans met them with desperate determination. Bodies clashed, weapons fired, people screamed and fell. Marcus fought like a man possessed. He had nothing left to lose. He had already lost everything once before. At Kelvin Station. He would not lose again. Not today. Not these people. Elindra fought beside him, her movements graceful and deadly. She had trained in secret for over a century, preparing for a moment she hoped would never come. Now that training saved her life again and again. One by one, the Krix guards fell. But so did the human volunteers. Soon, only Marcus, Elindra, and 2 others remained standing. They faced Prince Kethrix and his last 3 guards. "Impressive," the prince said again. He actually sounded surprised. "No species has ever fought us like this. Perhaps I underestimated your kind." "You did," Marcus replied, breathing hard. "Everyone does." The prince laughed coldly. "It does not matter. You are still going to die." He raised his hand to order the final attack. But then something unexpected happened. One of his own guards lowered his weapon. "Commander Vrix!" the prince shouted. "What are you doing?" The guard slowly removed his helmet. His insect face showed something strange, something like doubt. "My prince," Commander Vrix said quietly, "I have watched the battle feeds. I have seen things I cannot explain. Human children carrying supplies to their parents, wounded humans refusing to leave their friends, old humans standing against our warriors without fear. "They are insects!" the prince screamed. "They are nothing!" "No," Vrix replied. "We are insects. They are something else entirely." He turned to face the other guards. "The Krix respect strength above all else, but what is strength? Is it weapons, ships, numbers?" He pointed at Marcus. "This human has fought through our entire ship with a handful of farmers and miners. He stands before us now, wounded and exhausted, yet still ready to fight. That is strength. That is something I have never seen before." The other 2 guards hesitated. They looked at each other, then at Marcus, then at their prince. "You are all traitors!" Prince Kethrix drew his personal blade, a weapon made of pure energy. "I will kill you all myself!" He lunged at Marcus with terrifying speed. But before he could strike, Elindra stepped forward. Her own blade met his in a flash of light and sparks. "You forgot about me," she said calmly. The princess and the prince fought in a deadly dance. Energy blades clashed again and again. They were both highly trained, both incredibly fast. But Elindra had something the prince did not have. She had something worth fighting for. With a final, precise strike, she disarmed the prince. His blade flew across the room. He stumbled backward and fell to his knees. For the first time in his life, Prince Kethrix looked afraid. "Yield!" Elindra commanded. The prince looked around desperately. His remaining guards had not moved to help him. Commander Vrix and the others simply watched, their weapons lowered. "I yield," the prince whispered. It was over. The news of what happened at Titan's Reach spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Every species, on every world, watched the footage from the battle. They saw humans fighting against impossible odds. They saw miners becoming warriors. They saw children helping their parents. They saw a small colony stand against the might of the Krix fleet. And they saw the Krix prince, the greatest warrior of his generation, kneeling in defeat before a human man and a Valanthi princess. Everything changed after that. On the Krix homeworld, the military council reviewed the battle footage for many days. They studied every moment, every decision, every act of human courage. Finally, they released an official statement. The humans of Titan's Reach have shown warrior spirit that rivals our own. The Krix Collective will no longer consider humans as a lesser species. They have earned our respect. This was unprecedented. The Krix had never respected any species outside their own. Other species began to take notice, too. The Prism Concordat sent scientists to study human culture. The Draken Sovereignty requested military exchange programs. Smaller species that had ignored humanity for centuries suddenly wanted to establish diplomatic relations. In the Valanthi Empire, Emperor Velshan watched all of this from his throne. He had received reports from his daughter. He had seen the battle footage. He had read the statements from other species. Most importantly, he had watched the recordings of Marcus Chen. He saw how the human had led his people. He saw how Marcus had protected Elindra without treating her like a helpless princess. He saw how Marcus had offered mercy to defeated enemies. The emperor called his council together. "My daughter chose a human," he said slowly. "At the time, I thought she had lost her mind. Now I am beginning to wonder if she was the only one among us who was truly seeing clearly." The council members shifted uncomfortably. Many of them had openly criticized the princess. Now they were not so sure. "What would you have us do, Your Majesty?" asked the Grand Chamberlain. The emperor was quiet for a long moment. "We will wait. We will watch. And when my daughter returns home with her chosen human, we will give him a fair chance to prove himself." Meanwhile, Marcus and Aelindra were traveling toward the Valanthi homeworld. Their journey would take several weeks. The princess had called for a royal transport ship to carry them in comfort and safety. For Marcus, the journey was overwhelming. The royal ship was larger than his entire colony. His personal quarters were bigger than the home he had lived in his whole life. Servants brought him food and clothes and anything he requested. He hated every moment of it. "I don't belong here," he told Aelindra one evening. They were sitting in the ship's observation deck, watching stars streak past the windows. "I'm a soldier, a security chief. I grew up on mining colonies and military bases. I don't know how to be whatever you need me to be." Aelindra turned to look at him. Her skin shimmered softly in the starlight. "What do you think I need you to be?" "A prince, a politician, someone who knows which fork to use at fancy dinners." She laughed. It was a genuine laugh, warm and musical. "Marcus, I have known princes and politicians my entire life. They are boring. They are predictable. They only care about power and status." She reached out and took his hand. Her skin was warm against his. "I chose you because you are different. I chose you because when your people were in danger, you stood beside them and fought. I chose you because you see people as people, not as tools or obstacles. That is what the galaxy needs. That is what I need." Marcus looked at their joined hands. Her fingers were longer than his, more delicate, but they had held a blade in battle. They had fought beside him. They were stronger than they looked. "I'm still scared," he admitted quietly. "So am I," she replied. "But we will face it together." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars. For the first time in years, Marcus felt something like peace. But their peace was soon interrupted. An alarm sounded throughout the ship. A message came through from the communications center. An assassination team had been detected on board. Someone wanted Marcus dead before he could reach the Valanthi homeworld. The enemies were already inside the ship. The royal ship shook as explosions echoed through its corridors. Emergency lights flashed red. Alarms screamed warnings in the Valanthi language. Somewhere in the ship, assassins were fighting their way toward Marcus and Elindra. Marcus grabbed his weapon and moved toward the door. "How many?" A guard's voice came through the communication system. "At least 20, sir. They are professional killers. We believe they were hired by traditionalist nobles who oppose your marriage to the princess." 20 professional assassins against a ship crew that was mostly servants and diplomats. The odds were not good. Elindra armed herself as well. "We need to reach the secure room in the center of the ship. It has the strongest doors and its own life support." They moved quickly through the corridors. Twice they encountered assassins. Both times, Marcus and Elindra fought side by side, defeating their enemies through teamwork and determination. But Marcus took a wound to his shoulder. Elindra received a cut on her arm. They were running out of time. Finally, they reached the secure room. Inside, they found a dozen frightened servants and 3 wounded guards. It was not much of an army. "Seal the doors," Marcus ordered, "and send a distress signal to anyone who can hear us." The doors closed with a heavy thud. Outside, the assassins began trying to break through. The metal groaned under their attacks. It would hold for a while, but not forever. "The signal is sent," reported one of the guards, "but the nearest Valanthi ship is 2 hours away. The door will not last that long." Marcus looked around the room. Frightened faces looked back at him. Servants, cooks, cleaners. None of them were fighters, but he had seen miners become warriors on Titan's Reach. He had learned that courage was not about training. It was about choice. "Listen to me," he said, his voice calm and steady. "I know you are scared. I am scared too. But we have 2 choices. We can sit here and wait to die, or we can fight and give ourselves a chance to live." He picked up extra weapons from the wounded guards and handed them out. "I will not force anyone to fight, but I promise you this. If we stand together, we have a chance. Humans have a saying. It is not the size of the dog in the fight. It is the size of the fight in the dog." A young servant girl, barely 20 years old, stepped forward with shaking hands. "I will fight," she said quietly. One by one, others joined her. The cook, the cleaner, the old man who maintained the ship's gardens. None of them had ever held a weapon before, but all of them chose to stand. Elindra watched with tears in her eyes. This was why she had chosen humanity. This was what she had seen in them, not strength of body, but strength of spirit. The door began to crack. The assassins were breaking through. "Everyone get ready," Marcus said. "Remember, we only need to hold them for 2 hours. Stay together, protect each other, and do not give up." The door exploded inward. The assassins poured through, expecting easy targets. Instead, they found a wall of resistance. Marcus led from the front, fighting with every skill he had learned in his military years. Elindra guarded his wounded side, her blade dancing through the air. The servants fought with clumsy but desperate courage. The battle was brutal. People fell on both sides. The young servant girl took a wound, but kept fighting. The old gardener saved Elindra's life by throwing himself at an assassin. The cook used a kitchen knife to defend the wounded. Time seemed to slow down. Every minute felt like an hour. Marcus lost count of how many enemies he defeated. His shoulder screamed with pain. His vision began to blur, but he kept fighting. Finally, when only 5 assassins remained, a new sound filled the air. Ships, many ships, coming fast. The assassins hesitated. Then their leader cursed and ordered a retreat. They fled toward their hidden shuttle, trying to escape before the rescue ships arrived. They did not make it. The rescue fleet caught them before they could jump to hyperspace. The assassins were captured. The survivors on the royal ship were saved. Marcus finally allowed himself to collapse. He woke up 3 days later in a medical bed. Elindra was sitting beside him, holding his hand. Her arm was bandaged, but she was smiling. "Welcome back," she said softly. "Did everyone survive?" Marcus asked immediately. "Most of them. We lost 4 people. But without you, we would have lost everyone." Marcus closed his eyes. 4 people dead. 4 people who had trusted him. It hurt. It always hurt. "Their names will be remembered," Elindra promised. "They will be honored as heroes of the Empire." 2 weeks later, they finally arrived at the Valanthi homeworld. Nothing could have prepared Marcus for what he saw. The planet was beautiful beyond description. Oceans of liquid crystal reflected light in rainbow colors. Cities floated in the clouds. Forests of singing trees covered entire continents. It was like a dream made real. The Imperial Palace was even more impressive. It was a mountain of living crystal that reached toward the sky. Millions of Valanthi citizens had gathered to watch the arrival of the princess and her human companion. Marcus walked beside Elindra through the massive doors of the throne room. Every step echoed in the vast space. Thousands of nobles watched from the sides. Their faces showed curiosity, doubt, and sometimes open hostility. Emperor Velshan sat upon the crystal throne. He was ancient and powerful, his skin shifting through colors too fast to follow. His eyes were fixed on Marcus. "So," the Emperor said, his voice filling the room, "this is the human my daughter has chosen." Marcus bowed respectfully. "Your Majesty, you have caused quite a disturbance in the galaxy, Marcus Chen. Wars have nearly started because of you. Ancient traditions have been challenged. Powerful people want you dead." "I know, Your Majesty. I never asked for any of this." "No," the Emperor agreed. "You did not, and yet here you are." He paused, studying Marcus carefully. "My daughter must complete the 3 trials to prove her chosen consort is worthy. Are you prepared to face them?" Marcus looked at Elindra. She nodded slightly, her eyes full of faith in him. "I am prepared," Marcus said. The trials were difficult. The first tested wisdom. Marcus did not try to solve the ancient puzzle with logic. Instead, he shared a story about his colony, about how people with different opinions learned to work together. The judges were impressed. The second trial tested courage. Marcus faced Valanthi warriors in combat. He could not defeat them in strength or speed, but he never gave up, never stopped trying, and never attacked with intention to harm. He fought only to defend. The warriors saluted him with respect. The final trial tested heart. Marcus was shown a vision of the future. Power, glory, wealth beyond imagination. All he had to do was treat Elindra as a political tool rather than a person. He refused. "She is not a prize to be won," Marcus told the Emperor. "She is a person, my partner, my equal. I love her for who she is, not what she can give me." The throne room fell silent. Then, slowly, Emperor Velshan began to smile. "You have passed," he announced, "not because you completed the trials perfectly, but because you showed us what we had forgotten. That true strength comes from the heart." He stood and addressed the entire assembly. "Let it be known throughout the galaxy, humanity is no longer a minor species. They are our equals, our allies, our friends." The crowd erupted in cheers. The wedding of Princess Elindra and Marcus Chen was watched by trillions across the galaxy. It blended Valanthi traditions with human customs. Marcus wore his old colony uniform, patched and faded, because his people had asked him to remember where he came from. After the ceremony, they stood on a balcony overlooking the Crystal City. Stars sparkled above them. A new future stretched ahead. "What happens now?" Marcus asked. Elindra smiled and took his hand. "Now, we change the galaxy. Together." Marcus looked up at the stars. Once they had seemed impossibly far away. Now they felt like possibilities waiting to be explored. "Humans have a saying," he told her. "The sky is the limit." Elindra laughed. "For humans, I think even the sky is not enough." She was right. It was only the beginning. The end.